The second part deals with the different factors that influence the winds and the features of that winds. First of all, we should know what is wind. The horizontal movement of air from a high pressure zone to a low pressure zone is called wind. And these winds ranging from the soft breeze that dull flowers to the wild storms that ravage cities and destroy cities. Winds are named on the basis of the direction from which they blow. For example, the south wind is the wind blowing from the south, and north wind is the wind blowing from the north. Look at the screen. There are three factors that influence the speed and direction of wind. They are pressure gradient, Coriolis force, and friction. Watch the screen again. The change in pressure with horizontal distance is termed as pressure gradient. The pressure gradient is said to be steeper when the pressure difference is more. Watch the picture again and turn to the next picture, A and B. In the picture A, isobars are very nearer, which means steepness is higher, and in this situation the wind will be faster. And what about B? The second point that influence the direction of wind, Coriolis force. This is named after a famous scientist, Gustave de Coriolis, who found the secret. A freely moving object in northern hemisphere deflected to its right, and in southern hemisphere its left, and the force behind this deflection is Coriolis force. This force increases as it moves towards the poles from the equator. Look at the picture. All the moving objects in northern hemisphere turns right, and the southern hemisphere turns left because of this Coriolis force. Admiral Farrell found out that the winds in northern hemisphere deflect towards their right, and those in southern hemisphere reflect towards their left due to this Coriolis effect. The law put forward by Farrell is known as Farrell's law. The third point is friction. The speed of wind will be higher over ocean surfaces and plains as the friction is very low. But on the other hand, the friction being more along difficult terrains and places. Look at the picture. We have learned earlier that there exist different pressure belts. These pressure differences in belts makes winds. The winds blow from high pressure regions to low pressure regions, and the winds developed between these global pressure belts are generally known as planetary winds. Look at the screen. There is a figure that is given in your textbook also. Three important planetary winds. They are trade winds, westerlies, and polar easterlies. and find out the pressure belts. There are three planetary winds. They are trade winds, westerlies, and polar easterlies. One, trade winds. Look the picture. The winds blow continuously towards the equatorial low pressure belt from subtropical high pressure belts are known as trade winds. The trade winds in northern hemisphere are generally known as northeast trade winds, and in southern hemisphere southeast trade winds because it starts from the east. The convergence zone where the both trade winds met together, that is generally known as intertropical convergence zone. The equatorial low pressure zone where the trade winds from both hemispheres converge is known as the intertropical convergence zone or ITCZ. The second planetary wind, that's westerlies. Why they are known so? Because always they start from the west in both hemispheres. The winds blow continuously from the subtropical high pressure zones to subpolar low pressure zones are generally known as westerlies. The speed of the westerlies in southern hemisphere is faster than northern hemisphere because due to the vast expanse of the oceans in southern hemisphere, the ancient mariners had given different names to the rough westerlies in southern hemisphere. They called roaring forties when it reaches in 40-degree latitudes and furious 50s along 50-degree latitudes and shrieking 60s along 60-degree latitudes. The third planetary wind, that is polar easterlies, the wind that blows from polar high pressure zone to the subpolar low pressure zone. These wind always starts from east, so they are generally known as polar easterlies.